if you just show up and you choose to reveal and consistently share a consistent version of yourself, even though at all times you're discovering and exploring and experimenting with who that even is, the growth is a byproduct. There is no point in trying to be absolutely everywhere if we don't have proof that it leads to anything that actually moves the needles. Your world is built of your behaviors, which form your habits, which create your life. And if thoughts determine feelings, which create the behaviors and the actions that create the habits, you got to start internally so that you can shift those thoughts and feelings, but you have to.
Justin Schuman, thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for asking me.
I am eating these little Harborough gummies that Ashley got me in Vegas that are like dinosaurs and all these little monkey characters and stuff. And I know I'm tired from traveling. I know you're also tired from traveling, but
yeah, but jealous because I
delights.
don't have any gummies. In fact, I was saying to a friend, because I was in Colorado where this is very acceptable, I had an edible, and I said to her, every time I even take like a half of this, all I want is regular gummies so that I can then have a lot of gummy some things that wouldn't then like land me in the hospital later.
Yeah.
So I'm jealous.
That's the problem with edibles. They lead you wanting more, wanting sweets.
They taste good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we met because, well, you were interested in learning about ads. You found me, you found the School Ads Lab. I found you. I found the human experience. And I feel like we hit it off working together, learning from each other, a lot of mutual respect. And I wanted to pick your brain and catch up on a few things. It's been a month or a couple months now, maybe.
Yeah,
And
it's been a while. Yeah, I feel like my entire business has shifted, so it'll be fun to catch you up.
Yeah, you're so good at. I always feel funny saying this because it makes me sad a little bit to say this. You're so good at like just being the person that you are on the internet. Like you are, and it's a compliment. But for some reason, when I say that, I'm just like, it makes me sad that so many people are like not themselves at all, and that inherently means that the internet almost feels like this fake place or something. Like when I say you're so good at just being you, I mean, it feels like such a weird thing to say to somebody, but it's true. You're funny. You make extremely like engaging and amazing like TikTok, Instagram videos, and also your school group. The education is like bar none, extremely high quality, really comprehensive. You're a great teacher. I just want to know, like, where the heck does all this come from? How does one get as good at these things as Justin Schuman?
Trauma, Devin, trauma. I appreciate everything that you shared. It's interesting that you phrase it in the way that you did, because after this, I'm going to post an Instagram carousel that I wrote just a couple hours ago, sort of on the subject of truth and sort of like how negotiable it's become these days. I just think we live in a very opaque and chaotic world, and we could call it, not to politicize this, but it's like there's this 2-hour news cycle where there's just so much that happens so quickly. And that's we could leave it at that, but I think it's worth a deeper dive of like, if it ever existed, where did objective truth go? And I think that this is not why or where my brand came from or why I started this journey, but I think if I do continue to stand for something, it is to stand for showing up as a version of myself that is just unfiltered and unedited from the sheer lack of caring what other people think. And I think that all we have is our truth, and all we have is our specificity. And to distill myself to a point of blandness, or for anybody to, is so deeply offensive to me on social media, on the internet, period, and in life. Naturally, I think all of this work that I do is transferable. And I've just fought. I've hidden for so long in my own life, and now have fought for too many years to share myself openly and to express myself without fear of reprisal or what other people might think, and say, fuck the perception of others. that I'm just so vehemently down to continue doing it every single day and teaching other people how to do it too. So I appreciate the compliment. I find showing up on social media or in this podcast or in any conversation I have on the internet to be a very natural extension of myself. But I wouldn't say that that was always natural. I think that it required a lot of practice in public, which is something I'm a huge advocate for. And I really continue coming back to these two core skills, which are, and I do believe they are skills, which are self-awareness and self-trust. And I think you have to be able to uh, look and feel inward and quickly understand what you feel. That's like the self-awareness part. I said to a client earlier today, I feel like currently you have like 7 oven mitts on, and I'm like putting your hand on the stove, but you can't even feel the heat. And I'm like, you got to take all the mitts off because you need to know that, oh, yeah, that's hot. That I know exactly what that feels like. And then I know what to do with that information. I know how to proceed forward. And I think self-awareness and self-trust are huge. And I'm sure I'm curious to hear from you in the world of ads, which can feel very consumer centric and sales psychology and grabbing people, if self-awareness or self-trust, what those things mean to you.
It's funny. It's kind of similar. Like a lot of the people that we help run ads, I noticed that the like life cycle is like they start and it's kind of generic and they overcompensate by adding a ton of marketing to their generic to try to make it work, and then it just doesn't work. And over time they realize like what their actual message is and what their mission is by way of talking to the people that are in their school groups or talking to their customers enough to realize like, oh, they really like these types of conversations, and then they slowly can remove these overcompensating little like marketing like things and just speak normally as a
Mm-hmm.
person that understands like who their avatar is. It's something that I feel like everyone goes through that is running ads. It seems like it might be similar to what you notice. Um, but it's kind of funny because for us, like we've been doing ads for maybe like 8 or 9 months now to our school group, and the longer we do it, the less fucks almost there are
Mm-hmm.
in the ads. The more it's just like silly and the way that we talk in our group, and the more it is basically it's just a clone of like a post we'd put online. It's just like what you'd send your friends. It's you're getting closer and closer to that. The more comfortable you become with that, the better the ads get, I've noticed, which is um maybe a little like contrary to popular belief, because I know there are a lot of tactics and social proof, and there are certain like strategies that also work that aren't being super real. But like I find the real stuff to be easier to do regularly. I don't like putting a bunch of like stuff out there where I feel like I'm like tricking people to join or something. I feel like when we won the school games, we went really hard and we helped a lot of people, but we also had the highest churn ever for the month following. And I think it's because like we were so effective at kind of playing on the emotions you play on to get people in that a lot of people joined. And then a lot of them were just like, probably shouldn't have joined. They like weren't ready. They weren't the right customer, but like we effectively like over marketed it so much so that people were buying it that weren't the customer. And it's like that over the long term isn't the best strategy. We kind of dialed it back, and now it's more about the deep and authentic stuff. And I feel like that's how you and I really connected. Was I felt like we see eye to eye in this way that we don't want to just muddy up the internet and like contribute to this noise factor that we both see in our segments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, you said so much that's so good, and I also just want to reflect back on you and like for anybody listening that the ability to be so transparent with your own business, to be like, yeah, we won the school games by like some pretty strategic and intense marketing tactics that you stand by their effectiveness, but ultimately the longer term impact is not the kind of ethos that you want to create inside of your group. And I just think it's very cool to be so transparent, and I'm such an advocate for transparency in content. And it's funny that you bring up this noise notion that lately, especially, I've had so many people come to me and be like, I really don't want to add to the noise.
Mm,
And I said to a client today that, the din and the cacophony of New York City is noise, but also like the sound of the New York Philharmonic drifting out of Lincoln Center is also noise. And maybe instead of aspiring to not add to the noise, it's aspiring to make some music that can really cut through. And I think that, which, like, it sounds so silly, but
mm,
like almost makes me emotional to think about, because I think that right now at the intersection I'm at with my business is like, it's truly so much of the longer term, unsexy, non-marketing things that I've done since I've started are finally paying off. And that's really what I think marketing, the longer I do this, I realize is a shortcut to bypass long-term trust building,
mm,
and is playing on, or at times preying on, those
mhm,
um, the needs, the pain points, the demands, the desires, the goals that people have to achieve so that they can live their best life. And all of that is well and good. And I'm a sucker for marketing. I love to buy something. I
mm,
sign up for platforms and websites all the fucking time, but nothing, nothing can replace real storytelling and connection. It just takes longer. It's
mm,
not as sexy. And I've also realized in my side of the internet, and why I believe I'm singular at what I do, is it's not that easy to teach. And I'm really grateful that I am good at it, and that I have decided to devote so much of my time and energy to it, because not only is it not easy to teach, it's definitely not easy to sell the teach. And really, all I'm doing and continue to do is leverage and cash in on the trust I've built for so long, which of
mm,
course is not an infinite resource. It's finite, and you need to continue building trust, and then you need to show up for the people who do pay you the money to do the thing.
mm,
Which proudly, I really have a high success rate, and I've moved away from the low ticket model that my group started as, kind of similar to what you were saying about the school games and your experience the month post. It didn't reflect energetically the kind of thing I wanted to be building. And
mm,
although it attracted a lot of wonderful people, um, it didn't come with the commitment that I felt is needed to make a big enough shift,
mm,
which is language people leverage all the time to fucking increase their prices arbitrarily, which I did. I
mhm,
increased my prices, not arbitrarily, but so I justify it that way. And I was like, you need more skin in this game. You just do.
yeah,
This has to cost more emotionally. Sure, if that means financially additionally, because access to me is becoming harder
harder.
because of the just supply and demand of it all. Um, it then can attract the people who really can benefit most from what you have to teach, especially if what you have to teach takes time to teach it.
Mm. You've come a I feel like your speed of growth is really high right now because I when we made your VSL, I honestly, you made your VSL. I feel like we talked, we hung out, but you rewrote the whole thing. You put on an incredibly natural performance, which is the biggest compliment of them all for VSLs. Like the fact that it just doesn't feel like a VSL is amazing. And then I was just looking at it the other day, and you mentioned you mentioned your follower count at the time, and I went to your page now, and I'm like, dude, that was like a couple months ago, and it's like tripled or something. And
It's
this,
nuts.
what's it like for you on social media right now? It seems like you're going through a thing.
It's kind of crazy. It's also why I'm such a big fan of organic social, because look, it's not everybody can and is going to go viral, but I think that the problem is that's where people laser focus and apply their energy toward virality and views. And I find that those things are so unreliable. So if you just show up and you choose to reveal and consistently share a consistent version of yourself, even though at all times you're discovering and exploring and experimenting with who that even is, the growth is a byproduct. So yeah, TikTok, which is obviously going through its own moment of a 14-hour ban and potential purchase by some major tech oligarch. Who knows? We're almost at 700,000 now, which is sweet. And Instagram, interestingly enough, in light of all of the TikTok nonsense, I've just been focusing my efforts a little bit more there. And tonight I'll hit 89K, which at the speed it's been going, by mid-February we'll be at 100, which is nice. And again, I just say to people, especially because a lot of the people who are probably listening to this particular podcast and follow you or in your orbit don't do a ton of organic social. I've learned that especially if you lean heavily into paid ads, oftentimes, for a lot of folks at least, it's because there is not a huge following elsewhere that they can leverage. And I really just say don't undervalue the efficacy and power of organic social. It's hard, and I understand it's scary, and it's feeling like you're putting yourself out there in front of potentially a lot of people, but I'll remind you that's also the goal. So like, yes. Yes, show up yesterday and start doing it. And Instagram is not dead. No platform is dead. No algorithm is out to get you. It's just like you might be making some shitty content at the beginning. In fact, you probably will. You will make some shitty content, and hopefully you then can take it in stride and realize that it's not a reflection of your person. It's a reflection of a skill set you don't have yet, because when would you have built it? You know?
Mm-hmm. What do you notice about most people that are stuck not putting stuff out, but they want to put stuff out? What does that group look like when you when they find you or when you find them, or however that happens?
It's it really it always
Right.
comes back to being judged. It just always comes back to being judged or being perceived, and most often by the people they know, not by the strangers. Like if you really press
Easy.
somebody, it's not about like, what happens when user 859 66248 with no profile picture shows up under my TikTok and has some shit to say. That's not really what they're worried about. They're worried about what like Ashley from high school will think. And I'm like, lol, bitch, like Ashley from high school never moved out of the hometown, and she wishes. Like, no tea, no shade at Ashley, but like there is such a courage that's required to show up and share yourself that I don't think people, because social media does feel so trite and paltry often, they don't give it enough credence or reverence to the effort it takes to show up. And part and parcel to that, no one really believes that they have the intrinsic worth to show up and share anything. A client today was like, I want to post things that people will find interesting and that they will find valuable. And I want to share parts of myself that they don't know. And I was like, why don't you just assume that what you have to share is interesting, valuable? And instead about sharing any one part of yourself, it's about, I said, picture like a very large white canvas, and you've got like a paintball gun, and you're just spraying at the thing. And eventually you want to cover up all the white with color. But we're not really being so unbelievably strategic with where every single red, blue, orange, yellow, green dot lands.
Yeah.
It's just splattering, letting people see you, letting people take you in that way again and again and again and again and again. And so I think people have a misunderstanding or a skewed sense of what social media is, given the rhetoric that they've been downloading,
Mm.
both consciously and subconsciously, for years, because so much of the narrative around social is bad, is bullshit. It's just unhelpful.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I've had to like step away from social media and do other things for a while to kind of return to it in a way that I can handle it. I don't know. Right before school, I was doing e-commerce, and I was kind of like swinging and missing on social media. I was building a following, but mainly because I was running a lot of ads and like the designs were cool. And it wasn't because I was really had any character or personality that I was presenting. In fact, I was like, and you've seen this. I was like leaving it out and just like showing the thing, and I'm just like, just buy the thing. Like you don't need me. And it feels like it's a lot of just like, I don't know. I've always felt like I'm nervous about presenting me to the world. And I feel like there's something easier about it. Though the more we kind of like meet more people and get to be ourselves more on camera, I feel like this in the last 12 months, I've been on more like Zoom calls and live calls and made these things, and I've gotten more comfortable just like speaking, and it feels way easier to like grasp the idea that my a clip will go out and be on a feed than it was. But I almost feel like I accidentally have had this like safe, like enclosed space to practice for the last year. Like for me, it was on school. It was like, oh, you pay money, you get into my space. Now I'm gonna give you stuff because you're here because of the stuff. Um, like, do you feel like people like need some kind of safe space? Is there a version of like what I got with school that people can get, or that do you just tell them like just go, just get in there, just start putting yourself out there? Like what, how do you deal with this like this fact that you probably see in this scared of the Ashleys from high school?
Yeah. Yeah, everyone is really scared, and I think too, even just listening to you speak, like there are words that we use too that I think are unintentionally adding to the fear. Like you said, presenting myself to the whole world, and I think that presenting is very different than sharing or allowing people to see you or generously revealing. And I think that language is really important, and it's interesting because everyone uses that language. Well, I want to
Sure.
show myself. I really want to craft something that X, Y, or Z, or present. And a lot of those words have sort of like not necessarily overtly negative, but a manipulation involved, like a quite literally like using our energetic hands to mold something. And so, in terms of this like quote unquote safe space, while I would never go out and say like social media is a safe space, what I would say is it is safer than standing on a street corner in New York City, perhaps, and screaming your views for people to hear. Uh, just because one, you're like actually face to face with people. Two, people could have thoughts and feelings about what you're saying in a way that they would want to do something to you or at you. And I'm not saying that social media is a way to hide, but it is a way to practice going out on that stage, so to speak, and speaking truth, hopefully, without having to actually face people face to face. And, there's a lot of people who are like, well, I could just journal or I could do this at home by myself. And I'm like, you could do those things. You are then doing some semblance of internal self healing, I would call it, but you're not externalizing it at all. You're not actually doing or being or acting differently in the world. So then when you're wondering why you've been in therapy for 7 years, but like nothing in your life has shifted, I don't care how productive the conversations you're having with Dr. Freud are on his couch. If you then don't change who you be in the world, your world is built of your behaviors, which form your habits, which create your life. And if thoughts determine feelings, which create the behaviors and the actions that create the habits, you got to start internally so you can shift those thoughts and feelings, but you have to do and be something different outside of yourself. Social media gives you a place to practice doing that and being that newly healed version of yourself, such that that becomes the new habit system. So that's then what you bring into your real life. And so while it sounds counterintuitive, to me, social media is the safe space because doing any and all of that work just fully in public, it, I don't even see how it's possible.
Hmm. I'm sure you have like a strategy for 2025, but I also feel like there's just like a natural rhythm to your being on social media that exists. Do you have a social media strategy for 2025 that's come about, or are you just every day you're just going? How do you think about that?
I don't, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because, like, look, I know who I am at this point and I know what I'm not. And so it's like, since you and I have last spoken, I brought on a COO who, while she's an independent contractor, like, is the only way I've gotten out of all of the business bottlenecks that I had unintentionally built. And we are creating the systems, processes, and infrastructure that didn't previously exist in my business. And that analog, how I
Mm.
ran my business is how I am as a creator. I don't have, like, this is crazy, and I acknowledge this. Like, if you ever see a piece of content that I've posted, it has been posted manually. Like,
Yeah.
and to the day. Like, I don't
Mm.
have batched content. Like, when I post today on January 30th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I wrote that piece today. I put it in Canva. I made it. I posted it. Like, the bitch is
Yeah.
still very um, up to the minute and, like, doing it himself. And so I, while that might not be the smartest thing long term, it is literally the only way I have found to create that feels good for me, because I can't preemptively know how I will feel in a week. And it just doesn't feel right to construct content ahead of time. And
Mhm.
where I would like to be more keyed into the strategy are twofold. One, making more data informed choices, but at the same time, like, I hate reading data and I don't really care. And so it's hard for me to always be like, ah, yes, well, that one hook worked so well, so let's use it again. And conversely, the goals, right? So it's like, if the goals are lead acquisition, then I should probably have in the back of my head, well, what levers can I flip to drive more applicants to the pre-qualification application, which is now basically the entire funnel. If you want to work with me, you have to fill out an application. That's to get into the group. That's to work with me privately. Like, nothing is just available for purchase any longer for right
Mhm.
now until we come up with some more lower ticket stuff. Um, and I know what I have to do, and I know certain little uh, cues that I need to drop in my content just to remind people that that's an option. And really,
Mhm.
truly, when I work with my clients, that's what I always say. It's like, you don't really have to sell all that much if you're just consistently showing up and sharing a version of yourself that people build trust with easily. Oftentimes, you just have to tell them there's a thing that you can do for them.
Mm.
And so that's what I do. And so I'm
Mhm.
grateful. I mean, we've got like 500 plus applications right now.
Dang,
Um,
dude, that's crazy.
that Yeah. And so it's like, is
Congrats.
everybody financially qualified? No. Will everybody
Yeah.
be a good
Yeah.
fit? No. But am I doing, well, the business model is
All
also
good.
completely shifted in the sense that no more landing pages and no more sales pages. Everything's a call. So I keep my
Mm.
discovery calls for high ticket clients. And we just recently brought on a sales team. So there's now a setter and closer, one person who's doing end to end right now, who will handle all of the calls for the human approach and the group membership,
Mm.
which is nice because for a time there in November, December, I was doing all of the calls, whether it was for the high ticket or for the group. And although we brought in like I did like 40 grand in cash in December,
Mhm.
and which was nice and my biggest month ever. But I was, to say it was unsustainable is like putting it lightly. It
Yeah.
was brutal. It was completely
Uh,
brutal, and I just could not sustain that.
hmm. How did how did that last quarter build up to that for you? You had a crazy month. When did your COO join? Was this like, were you operationally bringing in a bunch more leads and had a lot more qualified people to talk to? And like, what was the month like? How did you get there?
The thing about business that I help people really hear is, like, in October, it was unclear how I was paying my Amex bill that month. And in December, I was like, I'm paying it 2 weeks early. And I feel like that is entrepreneurship in a fucking box. And so, and look, I've always figured it out, but like, this has been so hard, as any business owner can attest. And it really was the difference. I started working with her in this capacity of, she was going to audit all basically like client facing processes and journeys, whether it was how people are onboarded to work with me privately, whether it was how they got into the membership. And at the same time, I started working with a new business mentor whom I really adore. And he was the one who recognized, he was like, you just have a cash flow problem. He was like, you are constantly playing catch up. He's like, it's not even that it's the amount. He's like, it's just the actual amount of cash that you have to use at any given moment. That if you just had more available to yourself, you could make larger choices or take bigger swings in terms of either delegating or bringing people on or whatever. And that was the significant difference maker at first, because we took this low ticket membership, which was $47 a month, and significantly undervalued, and these a la carte one-on-ones I was doing in no long-term capacity at all, basically created this hybrid, which was a group offer where you got some one-on-ones and made it $3,000 instead. That sold so fast that I was like, oh, okay, I have to split them now. So the group was just the group, then the one-on-ones became the one-on-ones. And truly, in the course of a month, the one-on-ones went from, they were $6K for like an 8-week package. Then they were up to 10 and for 8 weeks. And now it's 15 for 12. And I can only work with like 6 to 8 people at once. And that changed my business model entirely. And also, if somebody's going to pay you $15,000 and they're going to split it over 3 months, you don't have like official monthly recurring revenue, but you do. Like, you actually can know, cool, I've signed this one client, they're here with me for 3 months, I'm going to get 5K from them each of these months. If you then have 8 clients in total, which is, this is not exactly our setup right now because we have people at different price points and different timelines, but when there's 8 clients at once, say, who are all paying 5K a month, that's 40 grand from that one offer every month for as long as those clients, for as long as your roster still has 8 people on it, right? And so I was also just like, I wasn't charging enough. And it is these tiny little decisions in your business that can totally take you to your first, who knows? I don't think this will be our first 7-figure year. It would be insane if it was, but I don't think it will be. Probably 26 will be. And I say small decisions, like raising your prices like that is not a small decision if you don't have the conviction behind your belief that you deserve to raise those prices. But at that point for me, it was not about like, oof, I don't know if I can or should. It was like, oh shit, I didn't see what I didn't see, and I didn't know what I didn't know. So bringing her on was happened in tandem, and was honestly just a product of necessity, because I had one TikTok pop off, and now to date add something like 350,000 followers to my account, which yielded hundreds of these applications. And so I was just like, I can't do this by myself. And now I don't have to.
That one video, was it that one that you sent me that was crazy? Millions of likes,
it's like,
I think.
it's like now it's nearly like, I think I just saw it before. It's at like 10 point, it's at 10.6 million views, which is, great. And it just continues still to add people. But it has 1.4 million likes, which I didn't even see. I haven't checked the analytics on this in a long time, which is crazy. Really fucking crazy.
Yeah. You just reached like a small, it's like you just reached like that, I think of the Rome, like the gladiator, like you just reached like an entire stadium. Like, it's just so many people.
It is so many people, and it's very difficult to even conceptualize. I mean, like, picturing the Coliseum is hysterical, but it's like, somebody said to me, or I said, I think I've had something like nearly like 80 million lifetime views or something in across my TikTok. And somebody was like, that's like a small country. And I was like, wait a second. I was like, no, I don't think that's a small country. I think that's like many small countries. And I looked it up and I was like, that is really, 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 truly crazy. And I don't think we can like conceptualize it, because it's such a strange number. But big fan of organic social media in this house.
Yeah. So yeah. I feel like you like I'll be real. Like before we met, I feel like I hated organic, and then we met, and I was like, organic. Like it was like that guy, that meme where that guy's like looking over his shoulder. I was like, hey, you know what?
Hmm.
And I feel like for me it just I always felt like it was something I had to like learn how be to be relevant. That's what it felt like
Mm.
organic was. It was like I have to learn a trend, I have to try to perform it, and then I have to see if it works. And it was like that's organic. Like that was my takeaway, I think,
That's
until
so interesting. Only because that word was something I thought of. I was traveling this past week. I was in Colorado. I went skiing. Whatever. It was lovely. But I was talking to two of my girlfriends about organic social, and they're both business owners as well, and they are using social in different ways in their businesses to build visibility. And I said something to the effect of, uh, "You have to create your own relevance." I think, as
yeah.
opposed to relying on trends or strategies or people who are telling you this is what's working right now and this is not what's working right now. You can always say, well, if I do none of that, but insist on my own validity and basically push myself hard enough, you can create your own relevance. But
Mm,
that's where the skill of storytelling and the skill of content creation are really important, because you cannot be relevant unless you are seen, and you are at the
mhm.
mercy of certain math formulas on computers that we will never see, especially if your account is nascent and you don't have a large community of people who will just engage and like and share anything you post just because they're big fans at that point.
Yeah. Something really I feel like something happened with your offer where your offer just became you. And it, I feel, you said, I saw that video that went viral of yours. And I remember when I first saw it, I was thinking, like, how did he just like tell everyone about his offer? You basically just describe the thing that your service is in a way, right? And 10 million people, everyone's watching it and loving it. And I'm like, how many of us business owners can just like show up on their phone and just be like, if you want to learn ads, like like you do it in a way that I'm like, damn, that's efficient. And it's because you're being yourself, but it is also like just hyper efficient that you can just tell any story, and then you're like, yeah, be a person. This is what I do. Like it's amazing.
I really appreciate you saying that. I think it's so funny to think of it as hyper efficient, and I suppose it is.
Yeah.
And I guess when you say though, like
Yeah.
the ads, it's like, to me, it's no different, um, because, and maybe this is interesting to talk about, but it's like that would be something you would say in a content piece where there's a larger story going on, where either you're sharing the benefit of the ads, you're talking about something about your philosophy or your technique or your skill or your foundational ethos underneath the ads that you build. Maybe it's a more tangential piece about an individual interaction you had with somebody inside of your school group, and we learn a little bit more of your values, and you're so grateful that like the world of paid ads brought you this relationship. Like there's so many
Mm,
different ways we can tell stories that are just as efficient, and it really goes back to content where I can learn from you while I learn about you, because when you exist at that intersection, that's what creates the efficiency. You're just doing both at once. You're not creating reach, nurture, or conversion content. You're creating content that does it all.
mm, man. And that's kind of the human experience. Do you call your your group, your offer, have you named it differently with the price change? It's the same thing?
So it's still the human approach, but um, it's funny. The more it's not that that name doesn't feel like it fits anymore. It just, I think for me, has like a little bit of vestigial energy from the prior price point. Although I still love the name and I stand by it, since I'm also not the one, quote unquote, selling it anymore, I don't find myself saying it, which is just interesting to me.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, I don't want to be the one selling it. I don't really want to be the one selling anything. And I don't ever feel like I really have to, which is so lovely. But what I do believe in very strongly is that our Friday office hours that we do, they're 10 a.m. Eastern, it happened tomorrow. They're so potent. And like when I do talk to people about the offer, I talk about that call so much, but then I hear the people in the membership and they're like, well, but the courses are so great too. And I'm like, right. Yeah, no, right. Of course they are. Right. I built those too, but that's not what I even think to talk about or to share. So to be totally candid, I mean, while the price point has increased, the results that people are getting are so much more consistent because of the increase in price and because of the level of commitment that's there. And a big part of my goal within Q1 is going back into this experience. And I mean, this might be, we're probably keeping it on school for right now. I guess this is like a little bit taboo. But I'm also exploring other platforms just because.
You gonna WAP it, Justin? You going to WAP?
What's WAP?
Oh shit. I hope I didn't just introduce you to a platform that you're gonna switch to. WAP is like a competing school platform. It feels like a hip crypto. It feels like a hip hop version of school, I would say, but also modern version of school, or kind of a,
WAP.
look at this, I think they're based in
Yeah.
New York. You could just
Silly
walk
Jimmy.
over. You just
I'm just
WAP
gonna walk
over.
to Times Square and knock on WAP's door.
WAP.
I'm now have to do a Google after this. However, it's funny because I really love school for everything that it is and does. Where I have a slight problem with it, this is just from a business standpoint, is I wish I could have everything in one place. I think that you guys have been really ingenious about how you've used the infrastructure of school over the lifespan of your group to either like sell a different price point or sell a different offer or whatever. I have not found that success. And frankly, like I don't know if you know this. Do you know the highest price a school group can cost?
Yeah, $5K a year.
But
Yeah.
like 4,999. I don't actually know if you can put 5. So it's like I'm limited by so many different things, and it's just like at this point, do we look at Kajabi, Thinkific, whatever the case might be, wherever we end up? But I think that, like I was saying, there is some sort of graduation that's going to happen for this. It's funny you calling it this the human experience, but it is an experience. It really is, and the word membership doesn't feel right, and the word cohort also isn't correct, and program also feels lame. And so I'm really working to kind of figure out what is it, and at the same time, like, well, it actually doesn't really matter, so long as you know that here's what you're going to get inside, here's the level of access you get to me, and here's the way in which I am going to be in some very, very, very fractional capacity on your team. And that's what people really care about.
Yeah. I feel like when you put the type of knowledge together, the type of teaching and consulting together that you offer, you could offer that anywhere. School is kind of its own experience of community that I think it's really good for some people, and if you become too busy, you might, it doesn't always matter for everybody. I think it can be a good amplification platform. It can be fun. I do think that they're jumping up to 5K a month pretty soon. I heard through the grapevine. Don't take me up on that, but I think that might become, instead of 1K a month, 5K a month, and then a bigger annual. But aside from that, yeah, school is school. It does have its flavor profile that I could see how something
As
else
every
might be a
platform
fit.
does. It's like I really, truly, I never am one to shit on platforms because I think that, I mean, clearly the market is so vast and there's always white space for a WAP or something. But I think what school does very, very well. It was exactly what I needed when I needed it. I don't even know what this needs next. But yeah, it's just been very interesting, and bringing things, simplifying and making everything as lean as possible has been a huge interest of mine for a long time. But especially if somebody who's going to come in and be like, well, if I'm going to be COO of this thing, we like everything needs to be simpler. Like the infrastructure
Mm.
for this is just such a mess,
Mm.
and it has been up till this point. But I'm curious to hear more about,
Mm.
because I haven't heard from you in a sec. You said you just got back
Yeah.
from Vegas. Is that also, was that school related?
Yeah, I went to the Hermosi event because I
Mm-hmm.
won affiliate school games in December
Nice.
and got to go to the last like it was basically the last school games event for the monthly event, the monthly school games, because now it's a quarterly school games that they
Mm,
started this year. It was really fun. I mean, if I didn't go to LA in July, I probably would not have ever wanted to go that hard on the school games.
mm,
I think I just really connect with the team, with the approach and the people behind school. I just love them all so much. I see those people and I'm just like, you guys want to live together? Like, should we get a place? You know, it's just like we in Vegas, like I was there a week ago and like played Smash Brothers until like 2 a.m. with Matthew Thompson and Daniel Bissonnette, Dylan from Course, all these people that like you see online, and we're all working on our separate things, but the thing that I have just gotten like so much like value is not even the right word, just human connection from, that I haven't gotten anywhere else, is that in real life experience from going to the games a couple times now, just hanging out with people. They have like they rent out a mansion, and
oh my God,
you
I
know there's
love it.
a whole bunch of people there that have basically like made a lot of money on the internet, and so there's just a certain flavor profile. It's either kind of like a growth operator type, or it's like a type like maybe like me, or like these yeah, these kind of like weird CEO guru types, you know. And it's kind of fun though. Like I just I really jam with it. It's motivated me a lot because I just want to go hang out with my friends, you know. Like now they have the quarterly thing, and I'm like, what do I have to do to hang out with my friends whenever this one ends? And so it's like
That's
silly.
wild. I mean, the
Yeah.
very vision of all of those people in one house is like really silly.
Mm-hmm. It was really cool. The one this time was different. The first time it was like a smaller group. This one was like all of November and December winners all at once. And so it was a massive group. We go to you go to acquisition.com and hang out with her, Mosey and Sam, for like a kind of a mastermind day. And so it was a bigger group, and they like sat down and did this like they did this like open forum basically where anyone could just ask stuff, and then they like dive in, and Sam is kind of the minimalist funny one, and then Hermosi's kind of the maximalist, you know, like guru one. And it's really entertaining to be in this little setting. But anyways, I digress. I feel like I'm a part of the cult of it all. Like one of the conversations we had at acquisition.com was like somebody asked them like, how do you make a cult? And so like Sam and Hermosi talking about cults for a while. I was just like, dude, I live for this. Let's keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Sam's like, I love cults. I love documentaries on cult. They're all really interesting. And he broke down what a cult was, and it's wonderful. It's just great. I think that's the uniqueness factor for school for me, is just the people running it are like running it kind of, I hate to say it, but like very human first, Justin. I think that's the thing that you'll miss the most if you go, is that
Kindness.
like the essence if you
The
go.
essence. I mean, I don't disagree. And again, I do, for right now, we're on school and we're hanging out on school. It is interesting though. It's like if you're not tapped into that nucleus in some capacity,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't know, right? It's like you
Uh,
wouldn't know that there's this like warmth and this familial energy, this like fraternity, for lack of a better
Hmm.
word, behind the thing. But
Yeah.
you have shared a lot of this with me before, and I do love the idea that behind this isn't
Yeah.
Meta, isn't, China. So it's like
Hmm.
it's nice to hear all of those things. And I think that the way that you feel about the back end of school and the people who run it is the same feeling that ultimately we try to, like, you talk about growth operators, and again, like, I don't even really pretend to know like what that actually means, right? But like a phrase that I've been leveraging lately is one of those other what does this fucking mean is world building. And I think that what I'm actually helping people to do is world build. And I've made the analogy before of like, it's just like we've got this brick and mortar store and it's Devin's store. And there's like, in the beginning, there's just two fragrances and we're just outside, like, like spritzing them all the time to get people to, take in the aroma, to then be enticed to come into the store just so that they can be more a part of this immersive experience and environment. But to world build takes a lot of time. And
Hmm.
so it sounds like there's this energy behind school that is really, really potent and palpable. But interestingly enough, and we've discussed this loosely, you and I, that doesn't always translate into the actual experience
Yeah.
of school as a platform. I think within each community, it does. Like what the communities themselves have the potential to create in terms of a human connection first uh, ecosystem is definitively there. But where the
Hmm.
platform is concerned,
Yeah.
um, it's just interesting because it does give me Lego blocks.
Yeah. I think 2024 was a really crazy ass year for school, and I think they had just a bit of like an identity crisis, to be honest. I
Mm,
mean, I think Hermosi bought in like a year ago, like in January, and became public and attracted like these new people. And
hmm.
I think school was trying to build this culture, and then Hermosi people were showing up too, and like some of them were integrating into the culture well. Other people were just kind of like, fucking let's make a bunch of money. And then you
Money,
had
yeah.
this really weird, like you had this mix where, like in I think this crazy attraction of like the structure of the school games was really successful in growing the thing and making people money. And it kind of created a subculture that I feel like they're kind of backtracking from a little bit. Like
Mm,
they're slowing down the momentum of the school games from monthly to quarterly because of the additional like factor of retention being important, because they're trying to prevent all these weird pump and dump scenarios, and they're trying to
yeah.
find more hobbyists that can win, that are just like more soulful groups, I think. So they've added all these categories. I feel like they're working hard to figure it out, but it's hard because money people kind of always come in and win things. And I think
Isn't that true?
I think that's actually been something that isn't always the most fun for the people that run school. Even though I'm sure they're grateful for those people being there, like I don't know that they just want that to be the thing. Like it seems like they're trying to do something and they're trying to figure out how to do that something still. So
Yeah.
we'll see. But oh goodness. You want to roast my social media strategy, Justin?
Do you have one for 25?
I have a little bit of one. Um a little
Organic?
bit. It's You could tell me if this counts.
Okay.
It's just this podcast in
Yes.
clips, in shorts that include me. It's kind of me dancing and flirting a little bit, but through still a safe encapsulation that isn't Evan Meadows that is hanging out.
Hmm.
And I feel like it's in the direction of organic, because it is organic stuff. So we're making these we're having these conversations. They usually run in anywhere from an hour to 2.5 hours. And then I have an editor and a thumbnail person. We edit two of these a week. And then we try to make like five 10 of these like shorts. We try to make a couple clips, and we're publishing to YouTube to start. And we're kind of getting a rhythm as a team right now. But I'm thinking about like how to be in more places, how to do more things. But as of right now, like the easiest thing to do is like hang out with my friends. And so
Sure.
I've come up with this package of hanging out with my friends where sort of the work of clipping it out and finding interesting parts is done by somebody else, and my job is to hang out with friends, talk about business. And that's the whole strategy. The whole strategy is to kind of evolve from there. And I'm curious what you would do if you were in my shoes, if you could roast that or
Yeah, I don't know if a roast is required. I mean, I'll turn the oven on and we could bake it gently, but
mm,
um, I think I'm following and I like it. I think that you said it before. You're dancing, you're flirting. Like the funny thing too is for a lot of folks who are consuming either this content, whether they're seeing it on YouTube or they're listening to the because are you also releasing the longer form thing as a podcast?
yeah, it's on Spotify, it's on
So if,
YouTube, and
whether they're
yeah.
listening to it or watching it on YouTube in long form, something you might not know about Devin is Devin loves a Loom video. And so it
Mm,
is funny to me that Devin feels at this juncture he must hang out with friends to have this be a comfortable space because I do believe of Devin that he is capable of doing direct to camera talking videos because he does them all the time by himself.
mm,
So while I think this is a really strong strategy and also like clearly, you know, a lot of people who are listening to this and they're trying to come up with their initial organic plan for what platform they want to start on, they're not going to have the means to have necessarily a thumbnail guy and an editor and whatever. But it is so cool to see, well, once you have the resources, what can you do? How
oh,
can you sort of
well,
shortcut yourself
well,
to uh, quantity that
quantity of
meets
all
quality? I feel like it gives very
very
the
the
like
like
in a very
very
myopic way, like the
the
Gary
Gary
V of it
of
all,
it.
because I appreciate what you're saying too, is like, how
Oh,
can you be more places without actually having to be more places? And that's what
mm,
I'm really struggling with this year. And my CEO makes a great point.
mm,
She's like, there is no point in trying to be absolutely everywhere if we don't have proof that it leads to anything that actually moves the needle. So she's like,
mm,
do you just want to feel like you're everywhere because you feel like that might lead to more
mm.
conversions or something? And she said, what if I just said to you, you're making 60 grand every month, no question. Would you feel as responsible for being on all of these platforms? And I was like, no, absolutely not. Not
Yeah.
right away. Where I get a little bit caught, and it's curious because I'm like, well, if you're going to share on YouTube Shorts, you might as well be sharing on Instagram and TikTok too, like this content for you in terms of the baking of this strategy. But for me, it's like there's Substack. Okay, well, Substack I hear awesome things about, and Substack they're paying out some of their creators. It is simply I don't have the time to or the wherewithal or the desire to take the very carousel I shared on Instagram yesterday, take the text from the slides and just share that as a blog post on
Mm.
Substack, which would really take me an additional 4.5 minutes if I just thought to do it. But one, I don't. And two,
This is
that shouldn't have to be me. And
mm,
so there will be business owners and there will be people who are listening who are perhaps content creators who are like, well, I do want to be more places at once. That is a problem I have not necessarily solved yet. There's
yeah.
repurpose.io that I find very effective for just like truly simply taking a video that was one place and putting it in another place. But some things that we're thinking about now are like, well, who is this person? Is it like an intern style person who loves marketing and copy and social media and they can just help be a distribution machine? Like I don't quite know what that next step is for me.
Mhm.
But for you, I like this a lot. I guess the question becomes like what is it building and like what is it building toward and what do you want this for? Because is it to bring more people into the school group? Is it to grow brand visibility and thought leadership as an expert in this particular space? Like, do you have a goal?
The goal, honestly, was to keep up with the types of friends that I've met that I can't really keep up with naturally, but I
Mm,
think it's valuable to keep up, like you and me. And then I think that the way to be able to do that is to sort of use this leverage and move it through the business, where we can kind of put some affiliate links in the YouTube description. Maybe eventually we're like cutting to a thing where I'm just like, hey, thinking about starting a school group. I don't really care, but like I really wanted to like keep up with the like I like the what's valuable to me is like continuing to keep these like connections alive with these
hmm
people. And I also would like to be a little bit better and more comfortable at doing some kind of like organic thing, like a YouTube video or YouTube channel, like that. The idea of we're thinking about thumbnail, the practice of that. Like I want to get my skills up on that. I honestly think that the hanging out, like this thing that might or might not even be considered a brand at this level, it's not that critical in the strategy part of it as much as it's like I think I can be really consistent in this way. It feels really sustainable. Like I talk to my friends twice a week, sign me up. That sounds great. And we
hmm
can make it valuable. Like we could not when I say that, it's just like we can make it it can produce enough money to pay for the just like even if it covers the cost to put in, huge win because I know the amplification of just sort of like that I don't know. There's some authority in there too. It feels like being an authority in the school space is cool. Um, but yeah, I feel like this top of funnel for school is something I don't really get because I just spend all of my time in school. But the
mm,
top of funnel for school is outside of school because they're not on school yet. And so that's another reason I'm like, well, let's just start playing with this now. And maybe this will become a major way to utilize like specifically school like affiliate is
hmm
something that we've succeeded at. I won the school affiliate games in December. Really big deal if you don't know, a huge deal. But like that's something that seems like a part of the strategy as well.
Yeah. I mean, all of that scans. And you said a really important word, which is where most people are thwarted in my experience, which is consistency. And so it's like people always ask me, well, how much should I post? And how do,
Mm,
how I've got a 9 to 5 and I've got a family and I hear all these things, but I'm also like, to be honest, I think it is not impossible to post a content piece a day. I think everybody can. But I think that that's me in my experience. But it doesn't matter ultimately what I answer with what you quote unquote should do if what you actually can do is different.
mm,
And consistency is so much more important than pretty much anything else, I think, in this particular game, but also
mm,
really life and business and all of that. Because if you really are just stubborn and unwilling to accept any other alternative outcome than what you want, and you're willing to be consistent, you can't fail. Like your success is inevitable. I don't know the timeline, but if you
mm,
don't stop and you are so stubborn that you're unwilling to accept any other outcome, you can't lose. And so I think that what's great for you is you found, and this is a great message for people out there too. It's like, get creative. Like you call this a hangout with friends. It happens to be on StreamYard in a podcast format so that you can then smartly work smarter, not harder, take the clips, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah.
It's like if you have a 9 to 5 and you drive to work, then like make some voice memos on the way to work. Like just talk to yourself and then transcribe them in Otter and maybe pop them through GPT as just like a proofread moment, and you've got a written post for something. And
Mm,
I think that people make content harder than it needs to be, and I think that consistency angle is really important. So
mm.
I'm grateful you mentioned it.
How did you like find yourself in the very beginning of when you were making stuff online? How did you become consistent? How did you go from you weren't posting to now you have regularity?
Yeah, well, that was really specific because I was still on Broadway at the time. And so when I was on Broadway in Tina, the Tina Turner musical from 2019 to 2022, I started creating on TikTok with like gusto at the very beginning of 22. And I was in my dressing room all the time because I was a swing, so I wasn't always in the show. And I had the time, and I had frankly, the energy. I just was like, I had the desire and the willingness, and I wanted to try this thing. And I'll also say out loud that a thing that I think is like kind of a hot take, but like not really. I just think it's a truth we should accept. Like external validation is encouraging. Like, and so I also understand the people who are like, it sucks when I share and it feels like I'm just throwing shit into a black hole and I never hear anything and there's no engagement. I get it. I truly do. While I don't think that a complete dearth and lack of engagement is an affirmation of your belief, or rather confirms your suspicion that no one cares about you, it also shouldn't be the thing that completely stymies your efforts. Conversely, we don't do this for the external validation, but the external validation definitely does help. You know, it's nice to get the comments. It's nice to have people tell you they're so grateful they found you, or the way that you expressed something was said in a way that they really needed to hear. So the regularity, I think, came from just a desire to and a curiosity for the experimentation, specifically on TikTok. Instagram never made sense to me. Only now am I like, oh, I think I get it, which is really that there is no difference between TikTok and Instagram as a platform just had to catch up a bit. But I was at that time posting like 2 to 4 times a day, which I would not do now. I could. Like, honestly, I do find content easy enough to create. I just don't think I would ever, that I could be proud of every single thing that I put out at that rate.
So your standard is your standard pretty high for what you would post?
Incredibly, but not in the sense that most people would say, like, lighting is perfect and I look perfect and my sound is perfect and editing perfect. Actually, like, I don't give a fuck about most of that stuff. It's an interesting conversation we're having right now because 2 days ago I was driving back from Colorado to Utah with one of my best friends, and we were in the car and I took some aesthetic footage of like the mountains and I'm in the car and there's some windmills and whatever. And I posted that video as like a 7-second thing on Instagram. And I was just like, what text? I was like, oh, well, there's like something aspirational in this. I'd been talking about life rebranding on Instagram. I'm always testing new messaging and positioning just to like, I think IP creation is like the actual way to scale a human is to pump out so much intellectual property that is so delicious that people want more of, and then figuring out how to visualize that and sort of make it manifest in many different ways. Anyway, I came up with this text on screen. I like posted it and I was like, that's fucking stupid. That was dumb. Like, I stand behind what I said, but it was just bland. And so then the next day, I couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, I should write a carousel about how frustrated I am and how, like, honestly sick to my stomach it made me that I was willing to put something out that sounds like anybody could have written it. And that carousel, which the front cover is, because I just posted it, when you say shit like this on the internet, your soul dies. And that carousel, just in an interesting way, like, has 460 saves, over 1,000 likes, 65 shares, and is done really well on Instagram. And it's just a reflection and dissection of how dissatisfied I was with the piece the day before. And so not only is my bar very high, I'm very open to seeing everything I share from so many different angles. And so I always encourage people to do that too. It's like, we have to take really big swings because the swings that we miss are still information. And I just think what was shitty about the one that I posted that I thought was really bland was it was a bunt. I bunted, and like, fucking that isn't exciting.
What made it a bunt? Was it there
It was
wasn't
just,
enough creativity? Like, were you not applying a certain thing to it, or?
yeah, it just didn't, it really sounds like anybody could have written it. It was like, remember 2025 is your year for your life rebrand. So, as a main character, you should take yourself on adventures, blah, 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 and spend time around people who like make life feel cinematic. And I was like, I like this. I was like, this is good language. It
Mm,
feels like me. It's flowery. But then I realized it was saccharine and it didn't mean anything and it didn't actually speak to any of my specific experiences.
mm,
And then in the carousel, I'd say something to the effect of like, is this better? I don't know, but it could have been like, 7 hours spent driving across the country in the car feels like nothing when you have a best friend to talk to, the mountains to look at, and memories from a weekend of getting yourself outside of your comfort zone, right? Like, while that is not as flowery, that was my experience. I could have just
mm,
fucking said that, but I didn't. Instead, I
mm,
asked myself, well, what would feel like yummy and aspirational, which is
mm,
essentially stepping outside of yourself and trying to curate and create something that you think other people would want to see and that would make them feel a certain way, as opposed to just looking at yourself first and saying, what the fuck do I want to say?
mm,
And it was in that way that I was like, fuck, you just like betrayed your own integrity and your steadfastness to sharing your specificity unedited. And
mm,
it just happened so quietly and sinisterly before my eyes, I didn't even realize. And so
mm.
I'm really grateful that I made the carousel because I felt like, fuck yeah, I redeemed it. And
Vindication.
vindication against self, which is like the weirdest vindication
Yeah.
for those of us who are overthinkers and highly self-aware.
I
Um,
honestly am surprised that you would post something and not catch it like that in this way of like it doesn't hit your standard. I feel like if you have a hard time, that must be a hard ass thing because you're just so plugged into this world,
yeah,
you
but we
know?
have to, this is where it's also like, cool, you're still a person, right? Like it was a 7 hour drive after an amazing trip in Colorado where I'd gone skiing and what, like I was physically tired. And so I just was like, I wanted to get a post up, but I
Um,
wanted to get a post up. It wasn't like I had something to say. I just wanted to get a post up. And I had this aesthetic footage and I was like, this
yeah,
feels like what everybody else fucking does on Instagram. Why can't
yeah.
I do it too?
That
And
sounds
what I've learned,
when you said that, it really reminds me of like I just need like one more hit, you know, like I just need
yeah.
like one more hit. It very much has the same like it has the same taste as that. I just needed to get a post up. Like I just had to.
And it wasn't even for like it's interesting to hear you say that because it's like, it wasn't for like my own, or maybe it was
Right.
for my own edification, but it was like, I have this fodder for something. It would be silly not to use it, especially because I'm on a platform where
Mm,
all I see is this shit, is I see aesthetic footage and nature and whatever. I just
yeah.
think that what I've learned is when you have finally started to access your own specificity and committing to sharing that version of yourself, a lot of the stuff that works for other people is no longer going to work for you, which is actually a
Mm,
really beautiful gift because it allows you just to stay in your lane. And I have to just stop trying to create things that aren't me. And I test
mm,
it every once and again just to see if it's still true. But it didn't perform. I mean, it's fine, but it didn't go viral, didn't do anything. I was like, then why would I ever do something that feels like it doesn't, that it cuts, that it hedges, or
mm-hmm,
it dilutes my message or what I'm here to say.
mm. So how does is it easy or hard for you to like take a break from work, go out into the wilderness and experience something outside of the social and internet world? Is that hard? Is that easy?
Easy for the right things. It's like I'm planning on doing Burning Man again this year. And so it's like at Burning
Mm,
Man, I'm not going to be posting because I won't have service. But like, will I take pictures and stuff? And will I want to maybe share something about the experience after I get back? Sure. Will it be hard for me to not post for 6, 7 days? No. Even me saying it out loud, though, will I probably preemptively schedule some stuff to go out in that specific instance? Yeah, because from a business standpoint, it just wouldn't be smart of me to go completely radio silent for 6 days, 6, 7 days, although knowing that I could. So I think that the layer here that's important to name for my business and for anybody who's listening is I love what I do. Like, I love my business and I love working with my clients and I love creating content. So me not working is also me not doing something I really enjoy. So it is this toss up for me, but it's like I spent a whole day skiing and I'm not an excellent skier, but like I'm fine. But like I wasn't all over social media that day because I was in the actual beautiful mountains in Colorado skiing with two friends and I was like, I want to be fully in this right now. Did I get some gorge footage and stuff that I want to share in some capacity? Sure. It wasn't about let me bring the world in on what's happening right now. It was let me be fully present and grab stuff that makes me excited that I can remember this moment and then choose to utilize it in the future however I want. Um, I would say it's easy for me to not do that, but it is difficult for me in general to not think about work because my entire life has become work, and because I love it so much, and I think it's also just it's a coping mechanism. I think I've been working for so many years now after a lot of trauma in my own life, and I think that if I don't work, I don't really know what I'm doing. And that's
Yeah.
my own thing that I have to kind of shoulder and figure out. But like
Yeah.
again, I got home on a red eye this morning and I had work all day and I did nap. Like I punctuated my days with short naps, my day with short naps, but otherwise I don't know what I would have done today. Like I guess maybe like grocery shop and like get my apartment back to normal, but I don't know what my life really is when I'm not working. And that's a
Huh.
little not worrisome, but is something I'm trying to figure out this year.
Yeah. I was on Marco Polo with my friends,
Mm-hmm.
like where I hang out the most, probably outside of on Loom with my work friends or in Slack. And I was talking to my friends about how like it's like I don't know if this is like good or not, but I just can't stop working. I like it, but I have like a baby, and I really like hanging out with them, and I really like work. And we went to Vegas, and it was a business trip, so like it was kind of it was kind of like a get out of jail free card. Like I get to work as much as I want because we are
Mm-hmm.
here because the business bought the tickets to this place. The business, it's like, and so I was like working my little ass off. I was like making the app and doing all this stuff, and it was awesome. And then I'd spend time with the family, but I'm still trying to figure out like, am I going overboard or is this actually great? Because I'm flowing a lot. I like what I'm making, but I definitely have a very hard time just like stepping away from that and being outside of it for a while and then being present with in real life people, unless there's like a almost like unless other people compromise for like for me, like they go into it to 2 a.m. or something because
Mm.
I need this like whenever we were in Vegas, like it worked because it was such a long day. I can kind of go forever, but in real life I'm still trying to figure this balance out too. I feel like it's hard to figure that out. I've never felt like there's enough time in the day to do the things that I want to
Mm-hmm.
do. Like I'm always like the sun's going down. Fuck.
I know. I've been saying recently that like if there were unlimited hours, there's just so many skills I'd love to master, like
Mm.
including but not limited to graphic design and
You're really good at
uh,
graphic design, I feel
but
like.
like as a complete layman who's taught himself everything he knows and has like dominated Canva, sure, but like
Mm.
I want to learn Figma and I want to learn Illustrator. I've been a photographer for many years, so like I've got that down, but there's just so many skills that you have to learn as an entrepreneur that like no, I don't need to become an expert in Zapier and automating, but like I've gotten pretty damn good at it that at this point it's like well, if I just learned a little bit more, I could be excellent at it, but like why? I don't need to be. I
Uh,
just like learning and I like being very capable.
mm-hmm.
And so I hear what you're saying. For me, in a way that I'm not super proud to admit, but I'm happy to be honest, it's about the money. Like I really love it. And also, it makes life so much easier and it makes me feel very powerful. Not having the money, making the money.
Uh,
I I actually like don't as long as I can pay the bills and like I'm comfortable and I'm secure, I don't care about the actual amount that I have in the bank account. It
mm-hmm.
is knowing that I have the power to jump on a Zoom with someone. And at the end, they're like, I don't care. Just tell me how I can work with you. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So it's this. This is what it's going to look like. And I can just take your card details whenever you're ready. And it's just so easy that I'm like, oh, I'm badass. Like, this is so cool and I feel so in control. And so I think that honestly, that's really at the end of the day, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's security, it's about control. Like, I don't know how you feel about that, but I am so completely at the in the driver's seat in this business. And I don't feel that in control anywhere else in my
Mm.
life. And that's an addicting feeling.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's so fucking honest, dude. You know me, I'm from the Midwest, so I don't know how much of my feelings on money are true or false, because there's so much shit in there loaded in that I'm still figuring it out. But I'm like, I really would, I don't want like I feel like I think more about like, I don't want to make too much money than I think of like, I want to make money, honestly,
I
because
don't want to make too much.
yeah, because there's added complexity
Mm.
with more things and more money. There's really like only so many things you can have with
Hmm.
the money. So like I don't know, for me it's like we have the house, the car, the family, the location. I brought my parents out here, I built them a house. They have a house too. It's like we all live out here. We're like I'm like I think we did it, so there's a
Yeah.
part of me that's like if we were to 5x this income, that's just like a whole bunch of like moving parts that I'm managing. I've noticed
Yeah.
like every 2x, there's like 5 times more things to manage,
Mm.
either in the real world if I buy more things, or in the virtual world where I build more little software things or little groups of things or offers of things. And so for me, it's like, let's make the right amount of money, which is, yeah, harder to figure out than it seems, but it's like, I don't even know what it is. It's like 6 figures, maybe 7 figures, but probably not.
Hmm.
I think like I live in California, so shit's kind of expensive. So I want a little bit of cushion, but I feel like I'm more so like, yeah, but the taxes though, and then the systems and like I just so much software with every like new, another 100 grand is like another couple of things that I have to maintain every year. Like
Hmm.
someone to look over, something to do. And it's like we got 9 people working on this business right now. And we've got another business. We got 5 over there. They're both moving all the time. The world's changing all the time. It's like my interests change all the time. If I get more of that, then even more people are at the helm of the change of the world, the change of our businesses, the change of my
Mm.
mind. It's like that vision. It's like, I feel like for me, it's got to stay kind of tight and small. And it's hard to figure that out. But that's a part of like business for me is like dialing that in and knowing like, I think we went too far. We got to trim 20 things back because we added 30 things this last like 6 months.
That's no, I think
Yeah.
I respect that. I haven't really considered it that way because I haven't experienced maybe the boom of that yet. Also as like as a single person who is one, like single, but two, like it is Justin Schuman LLC, right? Like it is just
Mm,
me and the people who I have helping me are building the just me thing.
mm.
Um, I have not yet hit the point where I'm like, oh, I don't need more money. I don't need more. It would be such a burden.
It's the human
Um,
experience, dude. That's
it,
because you're human. It's because it's all about Justin, and Justin's like, your setup is more streamlined. Like even your business is taking the human approach. Mine takes an organizational approach, I feel like.
but that's because that's
Humans.
not my skill. Like
Mm,
I am not an organized person. That which surprises people to no end. And I'm just like, I don't know whatever indication I gave you to think I would be organized, but I'm
you
simply so not. And
you definitely
I,
seem organized. That's surprising.
I think it's because I'm just like well spoken. I think people are just like,
Mm.
you're smart and you're articulate. I'm like, sure am. And I can articulately tell you that there's a bunch of clutter around me. I also just think that like, although it is lean, it is intrinsically a bottleneck. And so
Mm,
it's like, that's what I'm learning right now. And I look to people, not that I identify with them and not that I really want to mirror their archetype or their business model, but I look to people like Matt Gray or any of these other like single people who have made something of their name and and maybe this is shitty to say, but like every person I can look to at some point has lost what I would call, or what I would say is like the feeling of who they are as a person. Like they've become
mm,
so inaccessible that the only place I really feel like I can access them is like through their newsletter. And I'm like, well, then I can't
mm,
access you. Like to me, that's not, I don't want one YouTube video you put out a week in a newsletter and to feel like, okay, I still know who you are. Um, and so I really
ugh,
do think that something that will keep me small, maybe not in a bad way, or maybe until I can figure out how to scale it, is actively creating the content every single day on all of these platforms because it is so time intensive, but it does keep me very tethered to my community and to my people. And that is really important. And I think that's what ultimately builds this thing.
Hmm.
I don't know. I feel like this is going to be a year of huge growth, which I'm really excited about. But mostly, I'm just excited to like never have to worry about a credit card bill again.
Hmm. So good. I'm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of the amazing thing about business, man. In 2025, the things we can do for work, it's amazing. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I built today, like we had to incorporate, we made up a name,
Mm-hmm.
and like I had to put a website together in order to transition our Stripe account. And like I basically generated I like brain dumped for 5 minutes, and I just took the whole brain dump and fed it into an AI tool that creates websites and made a website. And I was like, that's good. It's just
Yep,
like
done.
in 5 minutes. And like the way that the world works, the way that you can do business and make money, it's really changing so fast that I have to ask myself, like in 2025, like how do we want to make money? What do we want to participate in? Because
Mm,
there's so many, like it's so. I mean, what do you want to do? Because it's everywhere, and
mm-hmm.
like if you are technical or a creative, or you have ideas, or you know how to like talk, you could basically make stuff and sell stuff. And anyways, I don't know how we got to that, but I feel like it's exciting. I'm bullish on email, and I'm bullish on like make and on like AI agent stuff right now. It's fun
Ooh,
to build stuff. The
that's a
words,
world I've not really. You'll have to
mm,
pick your brain about that another time because it's
absolutely.
not a world I've. And also, like to say I'm not bullish on email would be again an understatement. I'm just it's another one of those time things. It's just like
Mm,
with what time I have this awesome email list that I continue to build with amazing people that I like email once every 2 months when I remember. And I'm like, that's not great. People
mm,
say email is so great. So yeah, there's
mm.
a lot of goals I have in 25. But again, fucking time.
Time. Justin, thank you for your time. Thank you
Of
for
course.
being here. Thank you for hanging out.
Happy to be here. If anybody is curious to look into anything else I've done, I always lovingly say I'm Justin Schuman. Human is in my last name, and that is what I'm here to help you do better. And I'm on all the platforms, as I made very clear during this time together. Justin Schuman official most places, and always love getting DMs and would love to discuss working together if that sounds interesting to anybody who's tuning in from home.
Reach out to Justin, everybody. This man is a gem of a person. And if you're thinking, hey, I need someone to help me with anything related to being a person because you're having trouble on the internet, if you want to be a star, if you want to be yourself, Justin Schuman. Justin, thank you.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Devin.
See you, man.